Good evening, everyone. It's Joseph. I'm coming to you tonight talking about something that I'm really passionate about, something that to me is really exciting, and it's something that I think we're gonna see make a really huge change in our world here in the next couple of years. This concept is called additive manufacturing. You might remember from my introduction video, I'm studying to be an engineer. I enjoy taking things apart, putting it back together, and designing new things. So that's why this is quite, so exciting to me. You might know this concept as 3D printing. And the idea is that it's additive manufacturing. You're taking a small amount of material and combining it together to make something finished, to make a finished product. The original concept of manufacturing is subtractive manufacturing. You take something big and you have to condense it down until you create whatever your finished product is. So additive manufacturing, it's really a great concept. Like I said, you've heard a lot about it recently. NASA published an article through Fox News back in May of this year. They said that they're thinking of using 3D printing to produce the food that is going to be sent with astronauts when they go to Mars. So essentially, they're going to take a liquid base of substance of vitamins, minerals, nutritional substance, and then use that to print out granola bar kind of meals for the astronauts. This allows them to have liquid storage, which is much more condensed, and allows them to carry a whole lot more, whereas opposed to having to package, seal, contain solid food. So that's pretty cool. That's one of those things that's coming up. This is going to be a major impact on the production industry. A lot of countries around the world that have national industry in production, like China, Indonesia, Vietnam, these countries would be looking at this as something that's probably going to replace them over the next 20 years or so. Because the idea is that now I don't have to, as an inventor, go to an outside source to produce my prototypes or to produce my finished product. I can produce it right here in my own household and make tweaks to it and change whatever I want in it whenever it is that I feel like it, because it's right there in your home. It's right there. It's cheap. It's additive instead of subtractive, so you don't need a huge investment of raw materials to create something. So that's pretty awesome. So let me give you a little bit of the history on 3D printing. It's actually been around for well over 20 years. Not very many people knew about it because it wasn't really developed into a efficient concept until about the late 1990s. So the original concept was actually produced in 1984 by Dr. Charles Hull, who created the first stereolithography machine. And this was back in 1984. It really was not an efficient concept back then. It was a great idea ahead of its time, but it really wasn't viable up until the mid and late 1990s. 1999, Wake Forest Institute did something really major for medical science. They created a coating that people would have surgically implanted onto their bladders to prevent bladder infections. The reason this affects 3D printing is because they were using the concept of 3D printing and generating cells from those people and using them to print this layering that they would use. So that's pretty awesome. 2002, they actually printed a kidney that functioned. So that's a pretty huge advance. They're using this technology to try and figure out how we can replace breaking down body parts, which is pretty amazing. The concepts of prosthetics have been completely changed by this, because it used to be, you had a whittle it down idea of, okay, well, we have to kind of figure out what works for you. Now they can actually take a scan of the part of your body that needs to be replaced and print out something right then and there that is an exact match for your anatomy, which is pretty amazing. It used to be when you had like a piece of skull removed, they would have to take a plate and in the operating room, like an old school blacksmith, shape this plate to fit your skull. Now they can actually take a 3D scan of your skull and replicate that piece with plastic that's going to have the same kind of density and hardness that your bone would have, and actually have it fit precisely in there. So that's pretty amazing. Some other really cool things that have kind of developed there. Rip Wrap back in 2005. Dr. Adrian Boyer created this concept. It's essentially a self-replicating printer and freeware base. So the idea is that this guy came up with the concepts that you can use with 3D printing, and he said, here are my ideas, use them. And he also came up with a self-replicating 3D printer. And the idea with this is that if you have a 3D printer, or you know somebody that does, you can actually print out all the pieces needed to create your own. 2008, the first fully replicated 3D printer came online, and since then it's been kind of an ongoing thing. There's actually a whole industry that's developing around that concept. It kind of makes me think of science fiction, machines producing machines. But we see that there's been a lot of really amazing concepts that have been developing here. 2009, Dr. Gabor Frangeko, trying to pronounce that last name, but he used 3D printing to create blood vessels. Again, using the same concept of human cells that he would print out to replace people's blood vessels. So this would make like open heart surgery. Instead of having to go and remove a vein or an artery section from your leg or from your back, they can actually print out new veins, new arteries for you, and then insert those made from your own cells, so there's no rejection and no major issues. So it's pretty fantastic. Some of the great things that we've got on the horizon here, like I said, there's all kinds of experimenting going on with like 3D printing food, as a solution to the hunger and the scarcity of food across the world. Other concepts like being able to develop a mass production 3D printer that will replace the subtractive manufacturing that is so popular throughout the world. So keep an eye on this. It's going to be huge. I'm really excited to be able to tell you guys about it, and I hope that you've enjoyed it and that you'll go look into it and see for yourself. You guys have a great night. You've been great. Thank you.